Hey. How are we?
How you doing?
I don't know.
Everything's all right?
I was in L.A. The sun was
good.
shining. Everything was good. It's supposed to be spring.
Welcome
welcome
to the miserable weather like the rest of us.
Guess who else is with us? Jay Williams joining us from San Antonio for tonight's national championship game between Michigan and Villanova. Jay Will, what's going on?
I'm feeling great, Molly. I see the light.
Yes.
I see the light. I see my ties and I see the beach. You know what I mean? I'd say?
I feel you. You know I feel you. Let's go.
I'm glad he took that hat off, though, that he had on earlier and get up. Much better, Jay.
Yeah,
all right, Stephen, I'm going to start with you. Did Loyola lose it, or did Michigan win it?
Well, I'm going to say, listen, I'm not taking any credit away from Michigan because they were outstanding. I'm going to say Loyola lost it simply because their offense was flowing. Everybody seemed to be doing everything right. And then all of a sudden, Michigan clamped down defensively and just put them on lockdown. Of course, you give Michigan credit, but I'm just looking at what Loyola Chicago was doing leading into the Final Four, how efficient their offense were. They were making shots, and then all of a sudden, whether it was Krutwig or anybody else, they simply couldn't buy a shot. Custer couldn't buy a shot. He finished with 15 points tonight, hit 5 of the 9 shots, but only took 9 shots. That was problematic. Towns only shot 4 of 12 from the field. That debilitated them as well. Michigan's defense really amped up. This kid Wagner is special. I like him a lot. Very, very impressive. But when you consider the way, and this is to me, and we're going to get more into this later, when you consider the way Michigan was struggling with its shot, particularly Simpson, don't get me started with him, and 0 for 0 starting 26 minutes, couldn't buy a basket to save his life. Those kind of things, when you consider the way he was playing, the way Abdul Rahman was balling, and he got, what, 2 for 11 from the field or whatever.
He rolled that off.
I know.
You rolled that off.
So you got to do it. This is what you do.
I was very impressed by that.
Well, when you talk to, I got a bunch of fellas that are Muslims or a bunch of friends of mine, and I know how to pronounce those things. That's how they pronounce their name.
Yes.
But that's neither here nor there. At the end of the day, what it comes down to is this: Michigan's defense clamped down, but Loyola Chicago wasn't as efficient offensively as they had been throughout the game.
I think Michigan clearly won this game. Give Loyola all the credit for playing over their heads really early. But there's an old expression, class tells over time. Class tells, and that's what we saw. Michigan was a little thrown by that, shifty zone they were using, and eventually Wagner figured out, pass out of the zone and pass out of the double team, and as soon as he started doing that in the second half, it was a wrap. You saw Michigan was clearly the better team, and I think more than anything, it was their adjustment to Loyola's defense. Loyola, great story. You made the Final Four, and they deserved to get there, but they also didn't deserve to get any farther because they ran up against a better team.
Go ahead, Jay.
I'll say this, guys. First off, about the NCAA, it's all about survive and advance. I give credit to Michigan for surviving and advancing, and I also give credit to them for their defensive prowess. They are one of the top defensive teams in the nation. That being said, every one of Loyola Chicago's kids, when they were on that court, recognize that they can beat a team like Michigan. Now, maybe Michigan's defense clamped down a tad bit more in the second half, but Cameron Krutwig scored on Mo Wagner whenever he wanted.
Yes,
now, I thought in the second half, they just turned the ball over. They forced so many issues. It wasn't like these were turnovers where Michigan was playing the passing lane and get out. They were trying to thread the needle on a lot of these passes. I think overall, Loyola Chicago got a little bit tight, where Michigan was more used to being in big game scenarios like this one in particular.
Michigan figured out the Loyola defense a bit, like Wagner figured it out, and that puts pressure on you to be a little too perfect when you think maybe these guys are just
Max,
better.
The better team doesn't always win games about the NCAA tournament. We know that. It's about the team that plays hot at the right moment. And I'll say this, Dante Ingram did not look like himself. I mean, I saw this. He's one of their best players for Chicago, for Loyola Chicago. There was one point in the second half where he just came down in transition with 2 seconds on the shot clock that have gone off the shot clock, right? There was 28 seconds left and just jacked up a long 3. It seemed like all of a sudden he started pressing. They had a 10-point lead, Max. They had a 10-point lead. All you need to do is take care of the basket. We said if they don't turn the ball over, they win the ball game. They had 11 turnovers in the second half.
Well,
11. And 8 of the 11 turnovers were them trying to thread the needle on the pass, not because it was due to the defensive disruptness of Michigan.
Jay, let me say what you think about this, because, listen, here's what I noticed as well. a big reason for their success is their ability to hit the three-point shot. They shot 1 of 10 from three-point range for the game. And sometimes when you know what your success is predicated on, what makes you nervous ain't just the pressure. It's when you know that the stuff that usually works for you isn't working for you. Now, they had a lead, but in the same breath, you knew Michigan was going to come. You had a Final Four on the line. You had a national championship game appearance on the line. You knew that Michigan was going to come. If you're Loyola, you got to make those perimeter shots. It's one thing to slash to the basket and make shots like Krutwig did. It's another thing entirely when you can't hit perimeter shots when you've been hitting them throughout the tournament. I thought that played a role in how they fell to Michigan because I thought they lost their way primarily because they lost confidence because they weren't hitting their three-point shots. What do you think about that, Jay?
100% agree, S.A. So when you have Mo Wagner and Cameron Krutwig going at each other, right? Both of those guys are essentially kept canceling each other out. Mo Wagner kept Michigan in the ballgame in the first half. But guess who else Michigan had? They had a guy named Charles Matthews, a guy that used to play for John Calipari, who is an athletic wing, who was another player that stepped up for them down the stretch. You didn't see anybody else for Loyola Chicago do that. It was just at the end of the game, it seemed like either Cameron Krutwig could score or nobody else could score. And then you saw Michigan creating some points off transition, off those turnovers by Loyola Chicago. So, look, the reality matter is that for Loyola Chicago, all those kids, they will forever be haunted. Now, people will talk about how great of a run they had, but from a player perspective, considering they had a double-digit lead, those kids will be haunted by that because they will forever remember that they had a chance to not only win it, but if they got here, who knows what can happen in the championship game. They had a chance to be here.
They were going to get killed in the championship game against this Villanova team. But, Jay, I have a hard time reconciling the idea that Loyola Chicago blew it. Like somehow that the moment was too big for them or something, and it wasn't Michigan. Look at how many tough games they had to win to get there. I mean, a program like that, you get to the Sweet 16, you get to the Elite 8. You mean to tell me now because it's the quote-unquote Final Four, suddenly they just lost their way in the second half of a game? I saw Michigan make offensive adjustments to Loyola's defense. That, you know, I mean, it just seems like, is the argument really the moment was too big for these guys?
Well, I didn't say that they blew it. I said that they had it, Max. And yes, this does happen in the game of basketball. Sometimes you do get tight. Sometimes when you do find that rhythm and all of a sudden things start to go wrong, you try to revert back to, hey, who were we before this moment? And they didn't have any other answers. Now, I did say at the beginning of this, a byproduct of that is due to Michigan's defense. But at the same time, it's not like Xavier Simpson and Abdul Rahman were playing incredible defense. It's not like this whole team, like Michigan should have won this game by 25. Are you kidding me? With their personnel on the court, seeing the way that Loyola Chicago didn't shoot the ball well in the second half. Like, so look, I take all this into consideration. And once again, I give Michigan credit for winning the ball game. Their defense did come through at the end. But if you're Loyola Chicago, you're sitting there saying, we played with these dudes. We just got tight at the wrong time. And we didn't have the right kind of leadership from a guard perspective to get us out of that hump. Because the only answer we had offensively was Cameron Krutwig, who was our freshman low-post threat. That's it. That's all they had.
All right, so now Big Blue's in it. Before we get into Kansas-Villanova tonight, I just got to ask you, are you happy? You wanted the powerhouse program.
Well, I'm very happy.
You got it. You got your wish.
I'm happy
now you can be all fired up.
Sister Jean, it was very, very nice. Listen, it was very, very, very nice seeing her. God bless her wonderful self. I
said a lot of Hail Marys to get to this point.
But here's the deal. I have to be, I'm trying to be as respectful and real as I possibly can be. I love Sister Jean. Love her. Wonderful woman. That is not what I want to see the storyline to be for the national championship game. I don't want, I'm not interested in that. I want to see these two monsters going up against one another for a national championship on the line, and that's what we're getting.
You think it's two monsters? To me, it looks like Villanova.
I'm just saying. Big Ten.
Who Molly took from the beginning.
One monster.
I took after the
one monster. I got it.
As soon as
y'all know what I'm trying to say. Michigan, Villanova.
It's more interesting. Villanova's going to be a big favorite. I'd rather see them a big favorite against a Cinderella than a blue blood.
I don't want no damn Cinderella in the national championship. I'm not clamping my feet, okay? I don't care about that.
Guys, before we get into it, though, what could Kansas have done differently, Stephen A? What could Kansas have done differently against Villanova? Because a lot of people thought that they were going to win it.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing.
Right.
Villanova was hitting shots from everywhere. Listen, DiVincenzo comes off the bench and drops 15. That brother can play. He can play. I ain't bringing Brunson and Bridges and Booth and Pascal was just all over the place. I'm like, Lord have mercy. We even get to Spellman. Villanova's top 6. They're loaded. They're loaded. And this is the thing about it. They literally can put 4 guys on the court at the time, if not 5. All 3-point threats. So Kansas, I felt bad for them because, listen, before they had a chance to pass gas, it was over.
Yeah.
It was over. Just like that.
Wire to wire.
But
you always have to use the pass gas
well, it's the truth. It's just the truth. It's
just
just
a lot for me.
You get a lot of siblings, you know, so.
Oh,
Stephen A., this whole thing starts off with matchups, right? And I will say this about Villanova. They're like the Golden State Warriors of college basketball. When you have Omari Spellman made the first 4 threes of the ballgame. You know why? Because regardless of whatever Kansas did, their personnel didn't match up. Udoka Azubuike is he's a big-time low-post threat. Right now, there were a lot of storylines going into the tournament about his mom coming back from Nigeria. First time they're going to get a chance to watch him play in 6 years. All those storylines were tremendous. But what's a natural place that a big guy reverts back to every time he's running down the court in transition? Think about from the day you're a young kid, when you teach young post threats. Hey, big guys, you got to come back. You got to protect the rim.
That's right.
Protect the rim. Well, in the new age of college basketball, with the collegiate version of the Golden State Warriors, you have a guy named Omari Spellman who came out and made the first 3 threes of the game, first 4 threes of the game. So that opens up the defense. And when they start making shots like that, man, I mean, a record-setting 11 threes in the first half, it didn't matter what KU did. They couldn't stay with that.
Jay, to me, the key to knowing that Nova was going to win this game, and I would just hate to have to play Nova, coach a team to have to play Nova right now, job that Jay Wright's done. It was the Texas Tech game. You know, on a night where no shots were falling, they had to kind of change their style, crash the boards, and still won a game like that. How do you beat this team right now? I referenced earlier on the jump this morning, they were asking in a hot take machine, you know, could this be one of the all-time great teams? And while on paper you don't say yes, the environment that exists now with all these one-and-dones, if you have a great coach, which they do, who coaches up, even if it's not prime-time NBA talent, maybe a couple rotation pieces, kids who stick around 2, 3+ years, they just have an advantage over every team. They can shoot the lights out and then crash the boards when on nights it's not falling. How do you beat these guys?
Look, St. John's, out of all the teams that beat them, St. John's beat them. And I think St. John's did it because it was an off-night shooting. Off-nights do occur. But the reality of the matter is, Max, when you got a guy like Jalen Brunson, now look, Keenan Evans for Texas Tech is around 6'3.5", 6'4", all right? They were running double teams off Jalen Brunson because Jalen Brunson was posting Keenan Evans up. Jalen Brunson's 6'3", right? But he's still a smaller guard. So I think it's the versatility of the pieces that they have. And the beautiful part about this squad is that if one night Jalen Brunson doesn't do it, Dante DiVincenzo comes off the bench, gives you 19 points. Yep. If Omari Spellman doesn't do it, Eric Pascal is still making shots from 30+ feet out. They have so many. And by the way, Mikal Bridges will be a top 15 NBA draft pick. He will be a lottery pick. Omari Spellman, his trajectory is like this as far as NBA draft.
He can ball.
So and Jalen Brunson will be a 15-year NBA type guy. I mean, he may be a starter inevitably. Who knows? Just with his craftiness and his basketball IQ, his ability to play the game. So they have all the pieces.
Listen, Jay, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm interjecting and I'm trying to keep you quiet because if you keep talking, there may be no reason for anybody to watch the national championship game. And here's why, Jay. Here's why, Jay. I'm thinking about Jalen Brunson, and you know who I inevitably find myself thinking about? This kid, Xavier Simpson. He was awful Saturday. I'm trying to be nice because it's a college kid. He was awful. He was absolutely awful. 0 for 6 for the field. He was no factor whatsoever. Now I'm looking at him. He's undersized. He's averaging 7 points and 3 rebounds for this season. He's undersized. You're up against a Goliath because Villanova can shoot from everywhere. On top of it all, he's going to be the one that has to defend against Jalen Brunson. And you just pointed about how Jalen Brunson was posting up bigger guys. Could you imagine what he's going to do against Simpson? He's going to post him up. He's short. Simpson's shorter. So, Jay, he's going to have a whole visual of the court. He's already a great passer when going up against bigger defenders. I'm just looking at Jalen Brunson right now. I see MVP of tonight's game. Am I wrong about this?
No, you're right. And here's the part. Xavier Simpson's really good because he'll try to get up underneath you full court, and he's so fast laterally that you see him becoming very disruptive for other guards. Because other guards, think about what regular college guards do, Stephen A. A college guard to try to face you up and try to beat you off the dribble, right? They don't do that in the NBA, do they?
No.
That's not what Rick Brunson would do. Not when I was coming into the league.
Right.
Not the things that Rick Brunson taught me my rookie year. They're gonna put you on. They're gonna put you on their hip. They're going to walk you down the court, and they say, come on, little fella, I'm going to take you on this ride. I'm going to make this nice little easy post pass, and I'm going to bring your little tail to the block. Like, that's who Jalen Brunson is. And I'm going to say this right now, and this may be used if Michigan, by the chances of God, find a way to win this game. I think the game's going to be a blowout. I don't even think it's going to be a game. I'm going to be there back tonight watching the game, and if Michigan wins, I think it'll be one of the biggest upsets because I don't think they have enough firepower to stay with the likes of Villanova.
I will say this to you and Max, though.
Anywhere close.
Jay, I will say this to you and Max. Listen, all of us think Villanova's going to win because they're just so loaded. But this is college basketball. As you said earlier, the best team doesn't always win. And after one game in college basketball, I mean, if Michigan's got nothing to lose tonight, guys.
But you know,
because nobody's expecting them to win.
I got to say this: as much criticism as the committee gets, you know, and every year we figure out ways to early on.
Right.
You know, there's a reason that this is the first time a 16 beat a 1. There's a reason that you see chalk, chalk, chalk. You know, by this time, they largely get it right. I don't know. The way Villanova looks, I know we say it's one game, anything can happen. This would be, and I don't know, Jazz, see what you think about this. I don't know if it'll be seen this way historically because you hear Michigan, right? But I think this would be a monster upset if Michigan were to beat Villanova, like a monster upset.
I agree.
And unfortunately, it may not be seen that way if Michigan actually gets it done. You know, in history, it may not be seen that way.
Jay, quick question for you. What do you think was the biggest factor with Villanova, Kansas? Was it Villanova hitting those shots, or was it the fact that Kansas might have emptied their bullets the week before, having that big matchup in the Elite Eight against Duke?
No, I think it was the former rather than the latter.
Okay.
And I said it off the top of the show. It's the fact that KU, they play throughout Udoka Azubuike. He's their 6'10", 275-pound big man down low that gives you buckets. You could not play him in that ball game. And KU was forced to trade threes with the likes of Villanova. Amari Spellman was the difference in that ball game. And look, when you get blitz 12-0 right from the bat, and then you recognize that your low post advantage can't be an advantage because he's never in the block, he's on the perimeter, you have to change up the entire scheme of your game. That's why you saw KU go to zone. I haven't seen KU play a lot of zone this year. They're a man-to-man, hard-nosed defensive team. They just couldn't match up personnel-wise.
Jay, do you think if Villanova wins that Jay Wright has shown the best way to do it? I mean, if they win, that's 2 in 3 years. That's better than anybody else right now, better than Coach K, better than anyone, better than Calipari, better than anyone. Does that sort of a new blueprint, hey, it's not just about the top recruiting class, the kind of kids you recruit should be different, don't just look for the one-and-dones. Does this change things if they do win in a blowout?
I think it starts to change the guard a lot because you start to recognize that this guy has developed talent. You know, and look, he has a McDonald's All-American coming in next year, a kid named Javon Quinterly from New Jersey, very talented guard. Jalen Brunson leaves. He will probably replace Jalen Brunson, but he's a fundamentally sound kid. And these are kids. Amari Spellman last year set out, but he worked on his game. Now we're seeing him blossom. Mikal Bridges 2 years ago wasn't the most dynamic player. We're seeing this skill development because guys are able to stay around. And it's different than, I mean, when we say one and done, we're only talking about 2 teams, guys. Right. We're talking about Duke and Kentucky, and I recognize that. But the skill development of what Jay Wright does, that's next level.
All right. Villanova, this could potentially be their 2nd title in 3 years. Obviously, Michigan hasn't won one since '89. Guys, Villanova favored by 6.5, so we're all picking Villanova here.
Man right now.
Well, he is.
Villanova it is. Everyone picking?
Yeah, of course. How can you pick against Villanova?
By 10 or more, Molly. By 10 or more.
By 10 or more.
You know what the most interesting question is?
What?
If Villanova, or when Villanova wins tonight, will Jay Wright stay at Villanova for years to come, or will we be talking about him as the next NBA coach? Because what else is there for him to accomplish? That's the only interesting thing.
He could cement his claim as the best coach in college basketball, which would be amazing in the Coach K era.
He's a phenomenal coach and got class and has the look.
No question.
He has the look,
He's
the
a handsome
marketability.
guy, yeah.
The marketability.
Yeah.
Jay Williams could speak to that. Marketability, baby.
Listen, you can pay for school, but you can't buy class.
The brand.
Right, Jay? Jay, when you get fatigued today, you just close your eyes and picture the beach. It's almost there, home stretch.
Jay
Thanks,
doesn't get
Molly,
tired.
I got it.
Jay doesn't
Man,
get
that's the
tired.
slept in a month.
Jay doesn't
Plenty
get
more
tired.
today on First Take. We have reports of discontent between Bill Belichick and Rob Gronkowski, but could Gronk last longer in New England than the hoodie? Dun, dun, dun. Plus.
Everybody wants rest, rest.